Hello viewers, and a warm welcome to another episode. Something a little bit different today, steampunk related. As you've already seen from the description, today we're going to be putting together a steampunk mouse that I've built. This is something that I've wanted to build now for quite some years. One of my other hobbies is steampunking. If you don't know what that is, it's basically turning everyday gadgets into a device that made it look like it was made in the past. This is actually to go with another project that I started just over a year ago, which is not yet finished, my steampunk Commodore Amiga A500. So I decided to make a mouse to go with it, but I also wanted the mouse to work with other computers as well. So rather than cannibalize a proper original Amiga mouse, I decided to use an old PC mouse, an optical one. I've used an optical mouse instead of a trackball because I wanted to take advantage of the red LED that's built into the mouse itself to light up some of the features. I do love the design of the Commodore Amiga mouse. It's very basic but surprisingly quite comfortable. It was nicknamed the Tank Mouse. This has been around now since probably around 1985 when this came out, and they kept the design the same for years and years. It's certainly one of my favourite mice out of all the designs. It's nice and plain looking, no frills, just does its job, left and right click, and a trackball underneath. You can buy a small adapter to go between the USB connection and the serial connection on the Amiga to allow it to work. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. So without further ado, let's get started. I'll just talk you through some of the parts. That's the main body there. As you can see, I based it on the actual Commodore Amiga design. That's actually a piece of mahogany, that is. But actually a sample. It was a square originally. I thought that would make a nice basis for a mouse. I've already made a cord up. Got an old USB cable there, an old Sony one, and I've covered it in a big bootlace. Then we have some brass bits. Well, that's the brass base, a couple of vacuum tubes there, radio tuner and a watch part. That's the base of it, some brass screws. That's what's left of the original PC mouse. As you can see, there's not a lot to it. I put some foil across the top there, so this will help reflect the LED there that's used to pick up the mouse movement. It will help reflect it to where I want it to go as well. I've already removed all the non-necessary parts. It had a track wheel, and I've taken the left and right mouse buttons out. It also had some side buttons which I've removed. I've made up my own buttons. Some nice larger ones. Okay, with all that in mind, I think it's time to start putting it together. I've done a couple of dry runs already just to make sure there aren't any problems. I did come across a couple. If you make things yourself like I do, you'll know that these are one-off item and it's almost a prototype. So you do have teething problems. Hopefully I've thought about everything going forward. You always have to be 2 or 3 steps ahead with these kind of builds. Hopefully it'll be practical and it'll work and I'll be able to use it in my everyday computer. So let's get started. I think, what should we start with first? We'll get that piece fitted first. I think with these kind of builds is you're putting things together that were never designed to be together. But that's half the fun of it, making the old stuff work again and giving it a new purpose. I do like to have all my screws facing the same way. Just to move that blaze back around now. To cover up the screw heads. Hopefully you're seeing all this on camera. It's the back piece on. Won't glue those vacuum tubes in just yet, just in case I need to move them again to do anything further down the line. Right, that's another watch movement. I like to use old watch movements and things. It gives it a sense of something else is going on inside of the device. And this bezel was quite a tight fit. To mess around with it quite a lot, and of course after I put the varnish on, the wood gained a couple of, well, a millimetre, even probably half a millimetre around the edge there. The bezel wouldn't fit in, so I had to mess about filing it out just to get that bit of space back. I won't even need to use glue on this because it fits that well. Hopefully it will go in as easy as it is before. Probably should have done this first with hindsight, but I think that's about it. Get those buttons in now. I'll just drop in a teeny bit of super glue around the edge, and I'll probably drop some epoxy in at a later date just to give it a bit of extra strength. Got some industrial super glue here, so hopefully I won't super glue myself. I'll just let that go off before I continue any further. Right, let's get this cable thread through. Just going to add a cable tie, just so it's got a little bit of something to grip onto so it doesn't get pulled out. I've just glued the base into the new base. You can see what it was. An all optical mouse. Should have bought myself some super glue activator to make it go off a bit quicker. So there we are so far. Got the USB cable in there and the new mouse button cables. In a moment I'll get all this soldered in place. A little tunnel there for the light to travel up into the watch movement from the LED, and that will also light up the vacuum tube slightly as well, just to give it a little bit of a hint of something going on inside. Okay, time to solder the wires in place. I've got the soldering iron warming up now. I've left the tails quite long on these cables, done that on purpose to make it easy for myself to assemble it, and just in case I ever need to do any work on it in the future as well. There should be enough room in there for those little thin cables. Time to assemble the PCB back in and connect the wires to it. Make sure I get the left and right mouse button run the right way. That would be a disaster if they were wrong. These holes are a little bit too big actually for these cables. And once the solder's in place, that will support them. Just noticed I had both wires on the earth, so that wouldn't have worked. Just lifted up a trace there. This thing with these cheap circuit boards, cheap mice, are not made very well. The solder mask comes off quite easily. Heat it too long. Put a tiny bit of super glue under that. Okay, that's the left and right mouse buttons now soldered in. Now it's time to get the USB cable in place. Luckily the board's all colour coded, but I did photograph it first, so I didn't realise that at the time. I also lifted a trace here when I was removing the wire, so I had to take some of the solder mask off a bit further down this one. Just enough solder. Right, before I do the last bit of assembly on this, I'm just going to make sure it still works, just in case something come off somewhere or kind of short. Okay, I'm back. It's working okay. Well, it lights up, should we say. I haven't actually tried it on a computer yet, but it lights up. So, next thing to do is to get that PCB in the base, then get the bottom on. Hopefully everything will match up. I'm going to be careful here now, because I don't want to put any pressure on any wires. So I haven't actually tried assembling it at all like this yet. I didn't want to put too much more stress on the PCB. As I say, they don't like being worked on a lot. Things start coming off. So I guess really I should try and clip that in there. Maybe I should have glued that in. Sorry if my head's in the way. I think that's going to be okay. Certainly snug. Let's hope I'm not crushing any cables. Right, last but not least, the base. You can see that on camera. I'll do a close-up in a bit. Etched out a little base for it. It says on there Van Sysberg Industries, Human Interface Device Mark 1, patent pending, made in England. It's all in the details, isn't it? I love adding the little details of things. I just remembered I had to shorten 2 of those screws so they wouldn't cross the vacuum tube. That was the wrong one, I think. It's these 2. Because the hole where the screw goes through does come straight through into where the vacuum tube lives. So I won't do this all the way up here. I'll remove the tubes again, so I don't want it to end up making them crack. Getting quite low on all vacuum tubes now. Do make things look interesting. May need to sand the heads of these screws down ever so slightly so that it helps the mouth glide. I have countersunk the holes out where it goes, where the screws are going. I think there might be a little bit of a micron there. A gap where it's just not quite deep enough. Took 2 days just for the varnish to dry. I've been dying to put this together. It's winter here at the minute in England, so everything's taking long to dry. Well, winter. When I say winter, it's actually end of autumn. Looks like those screws haven't come through anyway, so good job I did file them down and check which ones it was first. Not so fussed about these if they don't quite line up, so I don't want to over tighten them. It's certainly got some weight to it. Yeah, I think they're quite flush actually. It's not too bad. Right. Let's glue these vacuum tubes in place. Don't need much of this stuff. Straight one. I don't think we'll get much light out of it, but it'll give it something. It's just a few millimetres out, unfortunately, on the back there. I can see it now. Didn't notice at the time after I drilled the holes out, but Nothing I make is perfect, nothing is symmetrical, but who cares? Put the cap on the USB cable. There we go. That's satisfying. And there we have it. All assembled. Feels quite nice actually. The next thing to do will be to test it out. I do like that plate on the bottom. I'll probably give that a little bit of a sand actually. Sanding sponge, just to give it a little bit of shine, just to highlight the writing, because I've used some liver of sulphur on that today to age it a little bit. Give it a little bit of a bit of wear, like it's been used. There we go. It highlights the writing slightly as well. The etching wasn't great on that. You can just about make out Van Seisenberg. That's my artist's name, my character's name. The crazy inventor. There we go. That was nice. Can't wait to use it. I'll plug it in a second. I'll show you a close-up of it lit up. Well, and here it is, plugged into my PC. I've tested it out, it's all working as it should. The only thing I have noticed is that obviously the mouse buttons don't click. That's something that we're all used to, because that's what normal mice do. But because I've removed the original switches and put my own in, these are just push button switches that I found on eBay. But I'll soon get used to that. Apart from that, it's doing everything it should do, it's working fine. So when I was testing it out, I had to make sure there wasn't too much distance between the sensor there and obviously the worktop that you're working on, otherwise it just wouldn't work. So I wanted to put some little feet on it, but unfortunately it just wasn't possible. There's lots of testing I had to do when I was making this before actually I went into production. It's amazing how many, just a few millimetres difference can make it either work or not work. I'm very pleased with how it's turned out, I must say. A little bit of imagination, some found objects. Obviously I had this piece of mahogany. I've had that for quite a few years actually. I had two of those, obviously the other one's there. Some brass, some radio parts. Got that bezel there as from a thermometer or watch movement. And here I have a Victorian looking computer mouse. Obviously it's steampunk themed. Steampunk is science fiction fantasy. That's obviously the original tank mouse there, which was what I based it on. This is slightly bigger, but obviously it would be because if it was made in the past, the electronics aren't going to be as small. And obviously there's no plastics then. But yes, I'm really pleased with it. It feels quite luxurious as well to hold and use, and it's more comfortable than I thought it was going to be. I thought that variable capacitor there might have been a little bit uncomfortable digging my palm, but it doesn't. It's actually alright. I'll show you a close-up of the plate underneath because I noticed in editing that's not showing up very well. But those LED bulbs, well LED bulb should I say, it's not doing a bad job of lighting up those vacuum tubes on the back there. You think it's only one single LED there, doing its function as a mouse pointer, and it's lighting up those tubes as well. It looks better in lower light. I'll do a separate close-up of that as well, because there's not an awful lot of light coming through that. But I didn't expect there to be quite honest. Obviously, I said at the beginning, I've made this to go with my Steampunk Commodore Amiga computer, which is still in a work in progress. Hopefully that will be finished over the next few weeks. Incidentally, if you want to see that, you may want to consider subscribing to my channel and switch on notifications. That way you'll get to know when it's out there. I think that's just about it for now. I can't think of anything else to say about it. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll be seeing you.